Hey guys, what is going on? Shaw here, and today we are talking conduits and soulbind trees, kind of, but mainly conduits. So the reason I want to do this is I want to kind of start figuring out what conduits might be a good idea. If you guys don't know, conduits are essentially like essences 2.0. They're going to be put into our soulbind trees that we're going to have access to, and I'm going to be doing a video on soulbind trees down the road. Things are still changing, and I haven't been able to test all of them yet, and I'm still doing a little bit of theory crafting, but it seems like conduits are in a place that Blizzard wants them to be, especially for some of the tanks. Some of the tanks have everything kind of filled out, and they haven't really seen much change lately. Like, Paladin just got a recent nerf to one of theirs, and there's, like, I think Demon Hunters are still missing one entirely, so there's still a few things with that, but I'm going to mainly cover Guardian Druid today in this video. But if you are a tank who doesn't play Guardian Druid, or who isn't really interested in it, I still recommend staying around. You can get learnt, I guess. So, that was so cringe. I'm going to go through all of these and talk about what Guardian Druids have access to and how you should expect to kind of build out your tree in different scenarios. And then we'll be talking about a spreadsheet that I've been working on in my little side project that I'm hoping to get your guys' help with. So, without further ado, let's just jump right in. Essentially how this works. So, if you aren't familiar, or if you've been basically ignoring all WoW content ever on Wowhead and YouTube and don't know how any of this works, let me give you a quick rundown. So, you're going to choose a covenant. Your covenant has 3 different soulbind trees. You're going to see them here. And you're going to build out this tree as you level up your character and progress your character by collecting anima. And essentially, it's another borrowed power system. So soulbind trees in itself is a borrowed power system. And then conduits within that soulbind tree is an additional borrowed power system. Because while they work together, they're 2 inherently different things. So you're going to have access to 3 types of conduits. These include potency, endurance, and finesse conduits. So essentially, potency is going to be something dealing with damage, either increasing the damage of an ability or increasing the effectiveness of a cooldown, an offensive cooldown, I should say. And then you have endurance, which is essentially sturdiness, tankiness, or healing. So increasing the potency of, I guess, like defensive cooldowns, or increasing your healing done, or lowering the cooldown of some certain abilities. And then lastly, we have finesse. Finesse are things that are going to buff the utility in your toolkit. So for Guardian Druids, it's like Rebirth and Stampeding Roar and things of that nature. No pun intended. So we are going to kind of walk through how you might want to build out a tree depending on your character, the content you're doing, and the build. Now, for me, I mostly do Mythic Plus. I will be raid healing for my raid team come this next year for Castle Nathria, which I'm super excited for. But I mostly spend most of the time I spend in game is done tanking Mythic Plus. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So when it comes to soulbind trees, I'm not going to talk about it too much, but essentially you'll have a useful row or 2 useful rows that'll help you with damage or some kind of secondary stat. And you're going to have like another row or 2 that are kind of they're useful, but like not in a way where it's any kind of player power. It's kind of just like meh. And you're going to see that actually right here. So Unbreakable Body, just you take less durability loss and you get increased movement speed after sitting in a rested area. So like something that you don't really care about. If you're going to spend a lot of time like world questing, you might choose this, but honestly I'm going to take Unbreakable Body because I tank a lot and I die a lot. So we're going to get less durability loss, which is great, which means I can do a full key without having all my armor break. So, but we're going to reach our first kind of point here, which is we're going to have to choose an endurance slot. So I'm going to go through kind of these in the order I would build it out, and then I'll talk about finesse at the end because I don't think I'll be choosing finesse at all. So endurance conduits, right? So we have 5 options as tanks. Most tanks should have 5 options. You have 2 baseline ones that all specs have access to, and then you'll have 3 specific, or I guess it's the other way around. It's 3 generic ones and then 2 class specific ones. So for Guardian Druids, Innate Resolve, this increases our Frenzied Regen and Regrowth healing on ourselves. And this is increased by 12%. And then this, as you level up your character and collect more anima, this is going to increase this white value that you're going to see across most of these. So with Innate Resolve, this is going to go up, so 12% increased healing. Probably not something that you're going to end up taking very often. Because we're in bear for most of the time, Regrowth isn't something we can cast freely. And Frenzied Regen has 2 charges. And unless you build it out with maybe like some certain legendaries or other talents, I can't see this being one that we're going to choose, so we're going to just go past it for now. Then we have Tough as Bark. Tough as Bark lowers the cooldown of Bark Skin. This for most specs probably won't be like the greatest choice. I mean, I think it's probably the better choice, but not the greatest. But for tanks, this is really, really good. There's legendaries and there's talent choices that will complement this extremely well. And there is probably going to be some kind of like Bark Skin build that you can do to have just like crazy amount of uptime on Bark Skin. So this is probably going to be one that we're going to take. Then we have Ursine Vigor. This one is once you shift into bear form for 4 seconds, you're going to have increased health and armor. Not the greatest because, one, I don't know the diminishing return on it, so I don't know how often you can shift in and out of bear form to get this effect. Secondly, like, what? Blizzard, what were you thinking? I guess this can help mitigate some of that initial damage Guardian Druids take on pull, but I just can't imagine, like, the amount of value you're going to get from this compared to some of the other conduits is, like, so low. So, we're going to skip past that one. So then we have Layered Mane. This one you guys have probably seen before if you've played Guardian Druid throughout BFA. Ironfur has a chance to apply a second stack, which is really, really good. Unlike BFA, we don't get an agility bonus from it, but also unlike BFA, as we, again, level up our character, this white value is going to change, and I think it goes all the way up to, like, 20%. So there's going to be a point where you're going to have a 20% chance if you take this Conduit to apply a second Iron Fur. So this is probably going to be the go-to. A lot of players are familiar with this playstyle and are kind of used to kind of having that chance to have an additional stack applied, which is just good. So I think this is going to be a strong one. And then we have Well-Honed Instincts. So Well-Honed Instincts, it's a pseudo cheat death, I guess, in a way, is that when you fall below 25% health, you're going to cast Frenzied Regen on yourself. It's off of the global, it doesn't consume a charge, and it's going to benefit your healer and helping them sustain you before you die. So this is going to be, I think it's going to be a good Conduit, but I don't think it's going to be good until you have, like, this 90-second value is going to be reduced, and I think it goes all the way down to only being, like, a 38-second cooldown or so. So this is going to be one that's going to be better, I think, later on, but not maybe initially. Maybe in raid, I'm not really sure, though. Still thinking about it. So, for example, we have to choose an Endurance Conduit. I personally like Layered Mane, and I know, looking at this tree, that and the way that I'm going to build it out, I'm going to be able to hit more than just one Endurance Conduit. Though you could hit 3 Potency instead, depending on your playstyle. But this tree is a very good tanking tree. It's mini spoiler for a future video I'm working on. But I'm going to be able to build out 3 Endurance Conduits. So I'm going to be able to choose 3 of these, which is going to be really, really good. So that's going to be my goal. So we're going to start with Layered Mane because it's something that I'm used to playing. I like the feeling of having additional stacks. It just makes Guardian Druids more sturdy. And yeah, don't really have to justify anything. So next we have our first row. Now, when you get to a point like this in your Soulbind tree, you have to keep a couple of things in mind. Of course, you have to keep in mind the ability that you're choosing, and you want to probably choose one that you're going to use or you're going to like or that's going to benefit your playstyle or the content you're doing. But you also have to keep in mind future paths for your tree. So, depending on which one you choose here, you're either going to have to choose a Finesse Conduit, an Endurance Conduit, or a Potency Conduit. So you want to make sure, like, if you need to hit, okay, I need 2 Endurance and I need 2 Potency, then I'm choosing a specific path, either these two, because it's going to allow me to have Endurance here with Potency, or Potency, Endurance. So there's things you have to keep in mind while building out this tree, and I'm sure there's going to be some kind of set guide for the best choice. This isn't it. I'm just kind of building it out as an example. But more often than not, at least as a Guardian Druid, the Finesse Conduits are pretty lackluster. For Warrior, the Finesse Conduits are actually great, but for me personally, as a Guardian Druid, I don't really like how any of these work, so I'm going to be trying to stay away from them. But with that being said, I'm going to quickly cover it because this would be the Finesse option. So first we have Born Anew. This was similar to an Azerite trait that we had in BFA. Upon battle resing someone, you're going to give them a mini food buff. This food buff stat is going to increase as you progress your character, like I've said before. Fine for raid as a Guardian Druid, I guess. Not so great for Mythic Plus because, you know, there's lots of opportunities to eat through different points in the dungeon. There's fish feasts. There's other ways to get buffs. So I don't think Born Anew is going to be a great choice for Mythic Plus content or for PvP, since I guess you can't really have food buff in Arena. So Born of the Wilds is going to reduce the cooldown of Mighty Bash, Mass Entanglement, and Heart of the Wild. So this could be pretty good for raid. If you take Heart of the Wild for Mythic Plus, it could also be okay with the reduction on Mighty Bash and Mass Entanglement. But I think there's another Finesse Conduit that you'll typically take. And if you are going to choose a Finesse Conduit, I highly recommend as a Guardian Druid sticking to one. They're not that useful, and you're losing out on pretty strong Potency and Endurance Conduits. So front of the pack, Stampeding Roar's radius is increased, and duration is increased by 15%. And this is going to be obviously very beneficial. Stampeding Roar is an ability, it's a mobility, like a group-wide mobility cooldown that's fairly short, so having an increased duration and radius on this means you can hit more of your group, especially range players, and they're going to have increased movement speed. So I just think front of the pack is probably going to be the choice if you go Finesse at all. And then there's Tireless Pursuit. or 2 seconds after leaving your travel form or cat form, you have increased movement, or 40%. You retain 40% of the movement speed. Never take this. Like, like what? Like, Blizzard, what are you doing? Anyways, so with that being said, I know that I don't want this finesse tree. Despite this being okay, it's not bad. While you're above 80% health, you gain 1% agility every 3 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. If you fall below 50%, this effect is lost. This is probably okay. Guardian Druids, though, because of their lack of resource, like lack of rage going into combat, oftentimes you're going to fall below 80% health, and sometimes even 50% health right at the start of a pull, and you're going to try to spend that time stabilizing yourself, getting back up to 80, maintaining that 80% just to get the agility. I just don't think this is a great one to take, but we're going to look at the other two. Interrupting increases critical strike chance, pretty good, can only occur every 30 seconds, and then stand your ground, 10% increased stamina, and 4% healing done while you're standing still. Probably not bad, and it does persist while you're moving, so you can kind of like move and then position yourselves and like plant, and then like move and then position yourselves and plant. So not a bad choice, and it would probably be decent to build out a second Potency Conduit if I wanted to, but I am going to actually, I don't know. I often miss kicks. I don't think that's a good choice. So we're going to go Hold Your Ground just for an example, and then Potency Conduit. So lastly, we're going to talk about Potency. We have 3 options. So this one's going to increase our critical strike chance per stack with Ravenous Frenzy. This is going to be extremely strong. I think with all of the other conduits, or the conduit choices for your specific covenants, they're also really good choices. Just buffing that ability that you've chosen is going to make it feel actually that much better to use. So I always recommend taking this. Most of them are pretty good, at least for Guardian Druid. I haven't really checked out some of the other ones, but normally, more likely than not, it's decent. And especially because Savage Combatant, for example, so Mangle increase the damage for your next maul. This is highly single targets, and oftentimes in Mythic Plus isn't going to be something that you're going to be doing as much as compared to like Raid, for example. You're going to be spending more Rage in Mythic Plus on Iron Furs than you are going to be doing it on mauls. So then we have Unchecked Aggression, which is just 10% haste buff to your Berserk and Bear form. So we are going to actually be going with that one, and we're going to apply our Conduit, accept, and be moving on. So we're going to activate this tree. Okay. So we're going to choose that. And then again, another Potency Conduit. So we're going to go with Endless Thirst because I just think it's going to be super beneficial to have like a super fat incarnation with these 2 abilities. And then we're going to build down. So now I have a choice, right? So now I have to think, okay, either of these abilities, are they really that useful? Door of Shadows grants you an Absorb Shield. That's pretty awesome. So this is going to be similar to just having Fleshcraft, but instead of being on a 2-minute cooldown, it's on a 1-minute cooldown. So if you guys didn't get that hint there, for those who go in Necrolord, yeah. And then the other one is you grant allies movement speed for up to 30% for 8 seconds. So not that bad. It's pretty good. This might be more of a raid choice. I think Enduring Gloom will give Door of Shadows a more practical use. While the Absorb isn't insane, the fact that you can just use it as an absorb between pulls, like to kind of buff yourself, is going to help Guardian Druids with that main issue in their toolkit where they don't have resource on the start of pulls. So definitely a good choice here. But because I built that Potency, do I want to go Unchecked Rage, or do I want to maybe get an additional Endurance Conduit? So just for this video, I'm going to actually choose Move as 1 to benefit my group with movement speed, and then we're going to choose one last Conduit for Potency. So I'm going to actually choose my Toughest Bark because I thought that was a fairly strong one. Innate Resolve, probably not that great. I can't see a lot of use for Ursine Vigor, and Well-Honed Instincts I don't think is going to be great until I have a better like reduction on the cooldown. So we're going to then apply these Conduit, and we're lastly going to choose Service and Stone. Service and Stone is pretty dope. It's basically like Will of the Necropolis, a mini Will of the Necropolis for DKs, where you're below 40% health, you take 10% reduced damage, and then upon dying, you leave like a husk that does a lot of damage and heals your allies. So it could kill all the enemies you're facing, or it could help your group live a little bit longer to help finish the mobs you're facing. So I think Service and Stone is going to be obvious. You have to take it, obviously, but this is why this tree is pretty strong, because you can build out more endurance if you want to. You could build out good endurance at the start with kicks, then go Potency, and then have this Absorb Shield as well. So I think that this is a fairly flexible tree for Mythic Plus at least. So that's essentially how this is working. Now, I mentioned at the start of the video that I have like a little project that I've been working on that I would love your guys' help with, and if you'd be so kind to indulge me on this, that would be awesome. So I'm going to leave the link to this in the comment section down below. So here are all my notes for the Guardian Druid kits or conduits. I have it I have it in this first column here, the type of conduits, the name of it. I have these little symbols here symbolizing like Kyrian, Venthyr, Necrolord, and F for Fae, or F for F. So I have the description of the conduit here, the ranks it goes up by that I was able to depict from Wowhead as well. This was all data mined and done by Wowhead, so the only thing I can take credit for is aggregating the data into this Excel sheets, and then how much it ranks up by. I've kind of put down the kind of content I think it'll be good for. This might change, and this might come down to like preference, personal preference, so this might actually change, but I want to make this as accurate as possible. These little stars just mean I think these are typically good. I don't really know when it'll be good for either Raid or Mythic Plus or PvP. And then I have these notes on the right hand side, what I think about the ability. Now, if you guys have any comments about these either notes or anything, like I have all the other classes in here, I just haven't had the time to sit down and break down each of the abilities yet. So what I would like from you guys, if you could, is to, in the comment section down below, let me know about certain things that you found on the beta or practicing, or maybe some theories that you have about certain like synergies, or if it'll be good for Raid or PvP or whatever it may be. And I would love to add it to the sheets so we can have aggregated data of all this information, so people who are looking to play multiple tanks or looking up to pick a new tank kind of understand why we might be picking certain things over other things, like so certain conduits over other conduits. So we do still see some classes that have coming soon. I think Demon Hunter had one, so their second potency conduit, their baseline one, is still coming soon. I guess it's their vengeance one. It's not baseline. It's still coming soon. We haven't heard about it yet. There's some that have unknown values, like the Wowhead value is really weird. So just look at it, and if I got anything wrong or if anything's changed, let me know, because there's a lot of information. But if you guys can help me out with that would be awesome. And I think this would be a good source for just all of us to have. So I really appreciate you guys sticking around. If you stuck around this long in the video, I kind of tend to ramble, but if you enjoy this type of content, please consider hitting that subscribe button and that like button. It lets me know that this is the kind of content you'd like to see. And then, of course, I hope you guys are having a great rest of your evening or day or whenever you decide to watch this video. And until next time, I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care.